National Crime Victim Rights Week Award ceremony. My name is Candace Jondro, and I'm the Director of Victim Services for Family Service of Rhode Island. Family Service is one of several organizations that participates on the Rhode Island Crime Service Provider Steering Committee, and I'm one of the chairs of that committee, and I'm here with my two other chairs, Lisa and Angelica.
Hi, everybody. I'm the Director of Community Programs at Sojourner House. That is a nonprofit organization that serves victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking.
And I am Angelica Spirito. I am a clinical supervisor of community-based services at St. Mary's Home for Children, another nonprofit organization who provides treatment to children and families who have experienced sexual abuse and trauma. Why are we here today? It is my honor and privilege to share with you all the purpose of our ceremony and the awards that we will be giving out today. As we recognize National Crime Victims' Rights Week and several individuals and local businesses who have shown tremendous dedication to supporting, advocating for, and honoring the rights and dignity of Rhode Island victims of crime. After thoughtful consideration of numerous nominees that we received, the committee voted unanimously to honor our awardees for their collective commitment to promoting awareness of victims' rights, demonstrating excellence in providing victim-focused services, and/or advocating for systemic change to restore a sense of safety, dignity, and hope to victims, survivors, and their families. And we would also like to give a special thanks to a grant award from the National Association of VOCA Assistance Administrators, which is through a grant from the Office for Victims of Crime within the Office of Justice Programs, the U.S. Department of Justice. We are able to formally recognize and observe National Crime Victims' Rights Week in Rhode Island through this ceremony. We will be offering plaques and dignitary accommodations and certificates for our honorees in beautification to Victims Grove in Providence at Veterans Memorial Park.
And you'll be hearing more about each of our awardees today from Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nirona, Rhode Island Treasurer Seth Magaziner, United States Attorney for the District of Rhode Island Zachary Kunya, Providence Police Chief Colonel Hugh Clements Jr., and Central Falls Police Chief Colonel Anthony Roberson. Both Rhode Island Governor Dan Mcgee and Congressman David Cicilline will also be joining us, and you will hear from our awardees as well.
Every year, as we in Rhode Island observe National Crime Victims' Rights Week, public officials, as well as law enforcement, victim service providers, volunteers, and advocates typically come together in Victims Grove, which is located in downtown Providence's Veterans Memorial Park, standing shoulder to shoulder with crime survivors and their loved ones to let them know that we have not forgotten about them and we continue to fight and advocate for them. This year, given that we are not fully out of COVID here in Rhode Island, we are choosing to do this virtual ceremony. However, we do plan next year to meet at the Grove again and want to give special thanks to Frey Florists and Greenhouses, who every year generously donates a memorial wreath for Victims Grove. And I just want to bring your attention to the wreath that's beautifully displayed behind me. We also like to thank the Providence Parks Department and David Cooley, Family Services of Rhode Island Facilities Manager, for maintaining the Grove and beautifying it for us. Later today, we will be placing the wreath at the Grove and hope some of our viewers will visit the Grove to pay their respects. Also, thank you to Will Tregaskis with Family Services of Rhode Island Communications and Marketing Program for all his technical support for this, so that we are able to put on this virtual ceremony. And finally, we'd like to thank the Rhode Island Crime Victim Steering Provider Committee. A few steering committee member organizations have been particularly helpful in making this event possible. They are Day One, Sojourner House, St. Mary's Home for Children, SOAR, which stands for Sisters Overcoming Abusive Relationships, the Office of the Rhode Island Treasurer Crime Victims Compensation Program, the Rhode Island Public Safety Grant Administration, Victims of Crime Act Office, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Rhode Island's Victim Services, and Attorney Pina Nirona's Victim Services Unit of the Attorney General's Office.
So every April, the U.S. Department of Justice Office for Victims of Crime leads communities throughout the country in their annual observances of National Crime Victim Rights Week, which is a time to honor victims, celebrate our nation's progress in advancing their rights, and work toward expanding the reach of victim service programs. This year's National Crime Victim Rights Week theme is Rights, Access, Equity for all victims. It encourages us to prioritize providing victims and survivors with information about their statutory and constitutional rights, as well as advocacy to help them implement those rights and actively participate in the criminal justice process. This also speaks to ensuring full and efficient access to programs and resources that adequately address the wide range of victims and survivors' needs, both immediately following the crime they've experienced and also longer term in the months and years after their victimization, as many continue to struggle to recover their health, their security, their dignity, and to achieve closure. Lastly, the theme reminds us that we must treat every victim, every survivor, and their families with compassion and respect. This includes supporting and empowering them to identify their own unique and deeply personal needs related to their physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual losses while assisting them in meeting those needs swiftly. In Rhode Island, dozens of organizations have joined the Crime Victim Service Provider Steering Committee, sharing a commitment to best practice training and professional development for providers, advocates, and organizations about victimization, victims' rights, effective response, and available resources to preserve victims' dignity, restore their and their families' well-being, and support their involvement in the criminal justice process. We are also working together to expand our reach to underserved victims, including victims of color, victims within the deaf and hard of hearing community, individuals within the LGBTQ+ community who have been victimized, victims of elder abuse, and also to assist victims of crime that have long been underreported. We're talking about hate and bias crime victims and survivors, those who have been victimized through sex and labor trafficking, and very specifically right now, interpersonal violence, which we all know has risen dramatically across the country during COVID. We've also developed a Rhode Island victim resource guide that we'll be telling you more about, and we'll be telling you more about that later in the ceremony.
We are now pleased to welcome Governor Dan Mcgee, a lifelong Rhode Islander and our 76th governor, who recently launched a domestic violence working group to identify gaps and improve response to domestic violence victims and survivors while reducing the prevalence of domestic violence in Rhode Island overall. He'll speak more about the work group and share his most recent proclamation that April is Crime Victims' Rights Month for the state of Rhode Island.
Governor Dan Mcgee. I'm honored to mark the week of April 24th as National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and I'm looking forward to being part of tonight's virtual ceremony. On behalf of the entire state of Rhode Island, I would like to welcome you all. The theme of this year's National Crime Victims' Rights Week is rights, access, and equity for all victims. The theme underscores the importance of helping survivors of crime find justice by enforcing their rights, expanding access to services, and promoting inclusion. Earlier this month, I joined with leaders across government, law enforcement, and other agencies to launch the Governor's Domestic Violence Working Group. In Rhode Island, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men reported having experienced domestic violence in their lifetimes. These Rhode Islanders are looking to us in times of need, but I'm confident that this working group can identify and address the gaps in domestic violence response so that we can all build a safer Rhode Island for everyone. My administration is fully committed to supporting all survivors of crime and violence. Tonight, I am also honored to congratulate the evening's awardees. We've done so much for victims' rights here in Rhode Island. To our partners who've kept Rhode Islanders safe and ensured survivors have their voices heard, we thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us today, Governor Mcgee, and thank you so much for creating this proclamation for us for the state of Rhode Island for this week. That's a big accomplishment for us and a first time through all the years that we've been doing these ceremonies, so thank you very much. Next, we wanted to share with you a video that's been created by the Office for Victims of Crime. It's aligned with this year's National Crime Victims' Rights Week theme, and they really did a wonderful job, so we'd like to play that for you now.
painful to lose someone you love.
Yeah, that was my baby.
I was beating on the floor and asking God to take this pain from me. I needed help. So I went to classes and found out how to be an advocate. Rights are important. Everybody have rights, and a lot of people don't know they have rights.
We work with survivors who experience any kind of violence. So that might be domestic violence, sexual assault, family violence, bullying, any of those things.
I want to be sure I understand everything that happened.
And so it's very important for us to make sure that we have folks in this field who know what the community needs.
A long time ago, we never went anywhere by ourselves. We always had someone accompanying us. Nowadays, with what's going on and the trafficking of our young people, no one's walking beside them. So they're walking alone. They have nobody to witness, no one to call for help. The isolation is devastating.
Every day is something going on. Every day. Homicides. They want justice for their loved one. They want help for the pain.
When we don't address the root causes of violence, when we don't address the trauma that people experience, that's how the cycle of violence continues. So like many of you, I am a survivor of a gun violence. It's very important to have the voices of crime victims at the center of policy making. Crime Survivors for Safety and Justice, we are a national network of about 90,000 victims of crime across the country.
Thousands of survivors getting together to be able to speak and make a change about the policies that actually affect us.
What it's about is building the next generation of leaders.
Go ahead.
It has given me the ability to fight for justice.
People with disabilities are constantly fighting for rights, whether it's in transportation or education or community integration, and victim services and the criminal justice is just another area. Kathy had suggested I talk to you about some of the work that we can partner on. There's a huge amount of adaptation and accommodations that need to exist for it to even come close to having some sort of equity effect.
After I turned back around, I got hit in the head.
The Adult Advocacy Center works hard to make sure that there is representation by people with disabilities in forms of leadership, because oftentimes what we notice is that there are agencies who will say they're doing the work of working with folks who have disabilities, but they are not actually being led by folks with disabilities.
And we'll go ahead and get started, and I'll share my screen.
We all have so many different skill sets. We definitely can come together to try new and innovative approaches and to support each other because there's so much work that needs to be done.
In our Native communities, it's the voice of the people that makes the change.
All these different ways that people are exploited and taken advantage of end up sort of in this cauldron of what we now call MMIR, or murdered and missing Indigenous relatives. And we miss them.
She had went somewhere with somebody, and next thing you know, she's gone.
Are they still investigating?
They opened the case, and they're just like, oh, it's just another missing person.
We want to stop trafficking. It's not just this individual. It hurts the whole community. And the whole community needs to step forward and say, that's enough.
What does justice mean for a child or a baby who's been raped and then is groomed to be able to survive sexual torture so that people can make money off of that? Because that's me, and my voice is the sound of justice.
We have to be able to heal that spirit, because you got to heal that spirit before anything can change.
It's crucial to have Native-led solutions that are rooted in the culture, because it's through the culture that we're going to find healing.
There should be a lot of red in this quilt.
The quilt is very exciting. We can express ourselves as individuals and as a community to raise awareness around MMIR here in northern Minnesota. We're creating beauty out of tragedy, and that is justice.
It's important to make sure that our work is survivor-centered and that we listen to what they need.
All crime victims have a right to services. All crime victims have a right to heal.
Now we're going to turn the program over to Congressman David Cicilline. He serves as Rhode Island's 1st Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Prior to his election to Congress, he served 2 terms as the mayor of Providence and 4 terms in the Rhode Island House of Representatives. Throughout his political career, the congressman has been a true advocate for victims and survivors of crime and their families, and has continually worked on initiatives focused on crime reduction locally and also across the nation. He's going to share a bit about his most recent efforts with us now.
David Cicilline. I'm honored to join you today in recognition of Rhode Island's 2022 National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Thank you to Family Service of Rhode Island, Attorney General Nirona, Sojourner House, and all of the other leaders and law enforcement partners for organizing this annual event. Today we come together to highlight how we, as a community, can support survivors of crimes, including through expanding access to services, enforcing victims' rights, and ensuring equity and inclusion. I know we have so many strong local and state partners participating in the event this year. This collective response is what helps survivors find their justice. And at the federal level, we're working to ensure justice nationwide. Earlier this year, Congress overwhelmingly passed the bipartisan Ending Forced Arbitration of Sexual Assault and Sexual Harassment Act, which President Biden signed into law. This law restores access to justice for millions of survivors of sexual assault and harassment who've been stripped of their rights to seek accountability. By negating abusive and secretive forced arbitration agreements, these survivors can now bring cases out of the shadows and into our court system. There is no doubt that this bill passed thanks to the tireless advocacy of survivors. In March, Congress also reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act, increasing critical services and support for survivors from underserved communities, improving prevention and response to sexual assault and domestic violence, and much more. Last month, the House passed the Homicide Victims' Families' Rights Act to give more rights to the families of homicide victims in federal cases. Under this bill, murder victims' families will be able to request reviews of their loved ones' cases that have gone unsolved for 3 years. With the advancement of various technologies, this is not only appropriate, but a necessary safeguard for families awaiting answers. I'm now currently working with Representatives McBath, Neguse, and Escobar on a package of bills that will provide more resources to victims of gun violence and families of murder victims. These are just a few of the actions that the federal government has taken this year, and we know we need to do much more. As a community, it's vital that we come together to support all victims of crime and crime survivors. I will continue to advocate in Congress for equitable and inclusive access to survivor services. And I will continue to fight to protect the rights of victims. I was proud to secure $413,000 for Family of Service of Rhode Island's Police Go Team program, which is providing critical trauma-informed services to survivors, and hope that we can continue to expand this vital program. Thank you again to the organizers and advocates for bringing us together today and for your commitment to justice. And a special thank you to the survivors for your bravery and service.
Thank you so much, Congressman Cicilline. It's really good to know that we have you in our corner, both when you were with us locally and now that you're advocating for all of us and victims and survivors on the national landscape. Next, I'm very happy to introduce Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nirona. Peter was sworn in as Rhode Island's 74th Attorney General after spending 20 plus years in public service, representing the people of Rhode Island as Assistant Attorney General, as Assistant United States Attorney, and as the United States Attorney for the District of Rhode Island at the appointment of President Barack Obama. We're going to play a few words from him now. Technical difficulties. It wouldn't be a virtual event without one or two.
No, it would not. We are live, so technical difficulties may happen.
Right. Would you like us to come back to it? Okay. We're nearly there, folks. Hang in there one more second.
I can see yours.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Attorney General Nirona. Wanted to share just a few more words about Kara. We're thrilled to be able to offer her a Crime Victim Service Provider Award for 2022. She was nominated for going above and beyond to advocate for the mental and physical health of the victims that she comes into contact with. It is expected that those working directly with victims are going to advocate on behalf of their victims and against those who directly hurt those folks. However, it can be an extra challenge to literally have to advocate either against systems or others who do not appear to have the best interest of the victim in mind. We have had the pleasure to observe Kara do this very thing, no matter how difficult the circumstances. She advocates for the overall well-being of the victims that she serves, regardless of who she needs to stand up against. It is for this reason and the overall positive impact that she has had on individuals that she comes into contact with that we are just overjoyed to offer her this award. We're going to hear a few words from Kara now.
Hey everyone, I'm Kara Stock-Guild, and I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner at the Lawrence A. Aubin Child Protection Center at Hasbro Children's Hospital. Thank you to our esteemed dignitaries for participating in today's award ceremony and for your collective commitment to ensuring the safety and well-being of all Rhode Islanders. Thank you to FSRI's Rachel Caruso and to the Rhode Island Crime Victim Service Provider Steering Committee. I'm incredibly grateful to be honored as a recipient of such a special award. Thank you. Over 2 years ago, I was offered the opportunity to join the incredible team at the Aubin Center. Each and every day, we are tasked with the awesome responsibility of caring for children and adolescents who may have experienced abuse and/or neglect. Each time I meet with a child, I explain that my job is to make sure that kids are safe and healthy. With this seemingly simple sentence, I am making a commitment to tirelessly advocate for the safety of each child through collaboration with our community partners. Through our collaboration, we aim to ensure access to much-needed therapeutic services and to ensure equitable representation within our legal system. While this is sometimes easier said than done, it is the courage and resiliency demonstrated by each and every one of my patients that inspires me to continue advocating and to continue working within this challenging yet incredibly rewarding position. I'd like to thank Doctors Barron, Goldberg, and Slingsby, and the rest of the incredible Aubin Center team. I could not do this work without each and every one of you, and I am incredibly proud to be a part of the Aubin Center family. Again, my sincere thanks to the Rhode Island Crime Victim Service Provider Steering Committee for this amazing honor.
Congratulations, Kara. We have just learned that some folks may not have been able to hear the audio on the Attorney General's video. So we're going to go ahead and play it one more time in the hopes that everyone gets the full experience. We want to make sure that you can hear what he has to say. So we're going to try one more time here in a moment.
Hello, everyone. I'm Peter Nirona, Rhode Island's Attorney General, and it's great to be with you as we celebrate and mark the 41st National Crime Victims' Rights Week here in Rhode Island and around the country. You know, the work that all of us do together on behalf of victims is incredibly important to seek justice on behalf of victims and their families. You know, we see this through the work of the office every day, the thousands of cases that we charge each year. And yet behind each and every one of those numbers, behind each and every one of those cases is a victim and their family. And it's incredibly important that we recognize the loss and the harm that they've suffered and fight on their behalf to make sure that their voices are heard in courtrooms around the state every single day. And so it's great, again, to be with you and to celebrate and honor this week, to recommit ourselves to the work ahead. And I want to congratulate all the award recipients. Thank you very much.
I am now pleased to introduce you all to the U.S. Attorney for the state of Rhode Island, Zachary Kunya, who is going to speak about our second awardee, Detective Trooper Jared Andrews of the Rhode Island State Police. U.S. Attorney Kunya was nominated by President Joseph Biden and confirmed by the United States Senate in December 2021. A lawyer for 2 decades, he has spent the bulk of his career with the Department of Justice, serving in 3 United States Attorney's offices: the District of Rhode Island, the District of Massachusetts, and the Eastern District of New York. He handled and supervised an array of nationally significant civil and criminal cases, notably in the area of healthcare fraud and white-collar fraud. In 2020, he was recognized with the Attorney General's Award for Exceptional Service, the highest honor conferred by the Department of Justice, for his work on the prosecution team handling a series of related investigations of Pfizer Pharmaceutical. Those investigations resulted in a recovery of $2.3 billion, representing the largest civil and criminal healthcare fraud recovery made by the United States at that time. Wow. Yes, wow, I'll second that. Let's hear from him now.
Hello, I'm United States Attorney Zachary Kunya. I'm honored to join you today as we commemorate National Crime Victims' Rights Week and come together to amplify and uplift this year's theme of rights, access, and equity for every victim of crime. As participants in the criminal justice system, it's important for us to remember that seeking justice for victims is not just about the result in a particular case. It's about a process that sees, hears, and respects victims and their voices at every stage, from the moment they first interact with law enforcement through trial and beyond. A process that does those things with care, compassion, sensitivity, and thoughtfulness to victims and their needs as they bravely come forward to tell their stories and seek justice for the wrongs that have been done to them. That's why it's such a particular honor and privilege for me this year to introduce, recognize, and celebrate Trooper Jared Andrews of the Rhode Island State Police Special Victims Unit for his extraordinary and exceptional work supporting some of society's most vulnerable victims, children, in some of their darkest hours. In every investigation that he conducts, whether through the Rhode Island State Police or in partnership with the Auburn Center at Hasbro Children's Hospital, Trooper Andrews attends to the needs of some of society's most vulnerable victims with care, compassion, thoughtfulness, and sensitivity. He exemplifies a trauma-informed approach that puts the mental health and well-being of these kids first. Recently, he advocated for a comfort therapy dog to provide some additional support and love to kids grappling with horrific circumstances in their lives and struggling to tell their stories. No matter how many cases, no matter how many investigations, Trooper Andrews shows up every time with enthusiasm, commitment, and compassion for the victims whose interests he serves. And we are proud to show up to recognize, salute, and commend him for his work this year. Trooper Andrews, on behalf of all of us, congratulations and well done.
So 1 second, we'll get the next video loaded.
You're going to be hearing from Detective Trooper Jared Andrews with the Rhode Island State Police.
Thank you, Attorney Kunya, and thank you, Family Services of Rhode Island, dignitaries, and distinguished guests for coming together today to recognize some of the men and women who have dedicated their lives to victim services. For those of you who I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Jared Andrews. I am a detective with the State Police Special Victims Unit, and I'd like to introduce our newest member. This is Gus. Gus is a 3-month-old golden doodle. He is soon to start his training to become a therapy and comfort dog for the state police. Since the creation of our Special Victims Unit, we have attended trainings and received certifications, but more importantly, we have had the opportunity over the years to work alongside many other agencies within the state of Rhode Island. And I think it's important to recognize the amount of teamwork that these sensitive cases require. The theme, rights, access, and equity for all, is definitely impactful. And speaking out as a victim of trauma while moving forward with the legal process is definitely a challenge for everybody. While the legal process in these cases is strenuous, and having a cohesive network of familiar faces along the way is very beneficial. And it's important that we provide accurate information, resources, and the maximum amount of effort on our end to ease the challenge and hear all voices. Thank you once again. It is truly an honor.
All right, congratulations, Jared. And did you just love Puppy Jared? Puppy Gus? I said we should just throw the script out and just talk about the dog, Gus, right? Well, spend the rest of the afternoon. The puppy made the show. We're good.
Adorable for sure.
So moving on to our next presenter, Rhode Island General Treasurer Seth Magaziner. In addition to working to expand economic opportunity and financial stability for all Rhode Islanders, Seth has shown a deep commitment to supporting crime victims. His office administers our state Crime Victims Compensation Program, through which thousands of Rhode Island residents who are victims of violent crimes have received financial assistance for medical and mental health treatment, relocation expenses, and missed work, only to name a few. Over the years, Seth has successfully advocated for expansion of this essential program. He'll be sharing some highlights from his office's work in this regard and introducing our next awardee, Nancy Camacho.
I'm Rhode Island Treasurer Seth Magaziner. This week marks the 41st annual National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and April is also Child Abuse Prevention Month. In recognition of this solemn occasion, I would like to thank Family Service of Rhode Island and other community partners today for your support and advocacy on behalf of victims of violent crime in our state. Your strength helps victims of violent crime through what is often the most difficult time in their lives. Our office helps crime victims recover by providing up to $25,000 for expenses like medical costs, loss of earning, and funeral expenses through the Crime Victims Compensation Program. Under our administration, the Crime Victims Compensation Program was expanded to also assist victims of domestic violence by providing up to $5,000 for relocation costs, and to also cover counseling expenses for children who witness violent crimes. This year, our office nominates Nancy Camacho for a Community Awareness Project grant in recognition of her tremendous support and advocacy for crime victims. Nancy tragically lost 2 children to gun violence and has been working to raise money for a food truck in honor of her late son David, who had just started training to become a chef when he was killed. Thank you, Nancy, for your strength and determination in helping other Rhode Island families access resources by spreading awareness of the Crime Victims Compensation Program. Too many Rhode Island families have been broken by the devastating impact of gun violence. Each year that I have been in office, I have worked with many of you to advance common sense gun safety measures, like keeping guns out of schools and preventing convicted domestic abusers from purchasing firearms. If you or someone you know is a victim of violent crime and seeking financial support, please visit ricvcp.com for more information about our office's Crime Victims Compensation Program. Thank you.
And next, some words from Nancy Camacho.
Mother of the 2 sons, victim of the violence. And I want to thank to the Rhode Island Crime Victim Provider Steering for the help that I received. And also, I would like to thank to the governor, to the General Treasurer, and also the Attorney General. Without these people, we have to thank so we can have that help as a mom, being a victim twice. But also, it's a dream that my son, David Camacho, my second child, that I lost, that we want to make that dream, but unfortunately, they killed him. And I want that dream come true in memory of him. It's any help that anybody can help me. Could you please? I appreciate it. Thank you very much for all this. Thank you. Keep working. Keep doing the right work that you guys doing. And I'm sorry for my...
Thank you again, Seth, and congratulations once again to Nancy as well. So our next awardee number 4, is Fry Florist and Greenhouses. Fry Florist is a long-standing Providence business, first established in 1911. Richard Espude has been the owner-operator since 1973, and it was Richard's godfather's business, and when he took over out of respect for his godfather, he chose to keep the Fry business name. We had hoped that Mayor Jorge Alorza would be with us today. He had planned to be, and he was going to share a little bit more about Richard and Fry Florist, but he's been a bit under the weather. So I am happy instead to say a few words about this very deserving awardee. Fry has donated the memorial wreath. We have one again behind us that we pointed out earlier. Fry has donated wreaths for our Victims Grove for this ceremony when we're able to be live in person for several years. And this business has always tried to accommodate particularly low-income families who need floral arrangements for funerals for loved ones taken by homicide. Richard shared with me that he feels it's important to be sensitive to families in their time of grief. Fry also supports numerous crime victim service organizations. He mentioned specifically the Nonviolence Institute, Sojourner House, and St. Mary's Home for Children. Even today, when we picked up the wreath, he mentioned that he was sending flowers over to St. Mary's today for Administrative Associates Day. So we're just so pleased to be able to offer Richard and his business this small token of our appreciation. We wanted to give him an opportunity as well to say a few words.
Hello, my name is Richard Espude. I am the owner of Fry Florist and Greenhouse here in Providence, Rhode Island. We are Providence's oldest flower shop. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Family Services for this Community Service Award. And also I'd like to thank the organizations that really are doing the heavy lifting here as far as trying to get victims of crime their rights, access, and some equity in the system that we have. And two of those would be Sojourner House, which I am familiar with and have done a few things for, and St. Mary's Home for Children. They are, great organizations working in the community over here to help out wherever they can, and so we try to help them whenever we can. I'd also like to give a shout out to my staff here at Fry Florist, because I wouldn't be able to do any of this stuff if it wasn't for them and the work that they do with me here. So again, thank you very much for this award. I'm not really sure why I'm getting it, but thank you, and have a great day.
Next, we welcome Colonel Hugh T. Clements, who will introduce our next awardee, Providence Police Sergeant John Muriel. Colonel Clements is the Chief of Police at the Providence Police Department and a fellow at the Brown University Policy Lab. Chief Clements began his Providence police career as a night patrol officer in 1985. After a series of promotions, he became the 37th Chief of the department and promoted to the rank of Colonel in 2012. He is a steadfast advocate for the victims of crime and a true pioneer of community policing. He has received numerous Chiefs Award for his police work, as well as letters of commendation from the FBI, the Attorney General's Office, and other local police departments. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today, Colonel Clements.
Good afternoon. My name is Hugh Clements. I'm the Chief with the Providence Police Department. Today we're here to recognize National Crime Victims' Rights Week and honor the victims. In our daily work, it would be easy to get lost in the routine of thousands of calls, crimes, and victims. But the true professional stays dedicated to the victim. They are at the lowest, most vulnerable point in their life. Their spirit may be shattered and broken. They need guidance and reassurance that they can get back on their feet and back on track in life. Some populations are more vulnerable to crime. The youth, elderly, violence in the form of human trafficking, domestic violence, sexual assault, date rape, and stalking, to name a few. The professionals and those in the community that play a pivotal role in this process are who we honor today. As Chief of the Providence Police, I am proud of this work we do with our partners and proud of officers like Sergeant John Muriel, who is being recognized today along with several other individuals who have done outstanding work with victims and their families and friends affected by crime. Sergeant Muriel was nominated by John Knoll, the Chief Strategy Officer from day one, who wrote, "Sergeant Muriel should be considered for this nomination due to his tireless efforts in victim advocacy. Sergeant Muriel is one of the most dedicated professionals on the job, working 24/7 for the victims that come to our unit. He constantly goes above and beyond to not only help those victims, but to support his staff as well. Besides being a leader within the department, he also is a respected figure across the community of Rhode Island. Sergeant Muriel is an active participant, working with many different agencies, including Day One, that act to help victims of sex crimes and domestic violence. Additionally, he works to better law enforcement, conducting and teaching many pieces of training within different departments across the state. His dedication and a true sense of empathy towards colleagues, victims, and everyone around him is a special quality that deserves recognition. Thank you, John Knoll, for recognizing the hard work and dedication of Sergeant Muriel. Sergeant Muriel and today's other recipients are so deserving for the work they do in advocating for victims every single day. These professionals bring a diversity of specialized skills and resources and cultural competence and truly a trauma-informed perspective to those in need. In the theme of this year's award, they genuinely go above and beyond to provide rights, access, and equity to all victims. It takes strength and courage to overcome victimization, and most times the human spirit simply cannot do it alone. This work is so important, and I have so much respect for the people being recognized today. Congratulations to all. And I want to thank our nonprofit partners for coordinating this special virtual event. Thank you to Family Services of Rhode Island and Sojourner House, Rhode Island. Thank you for this important event.
Next, we will hear from Detective Sergeant John Muriel.
My name is John Muriel. I'm a detective sergeant with the Providence Police Department. I'm in charge of Special Victims Unit and have been for the last 3 years. We investigate domestic violence crimes, sex crimes, elderly crimes. We look into sex trafficking, and we monitor all the sex offenders in our city. First, I would like to say thank you for everyone who nominated me for this award and everyone who supported my nomination. Second, I'd like to say that I'm humbled and honored to accept this Victim Service Award. 2 weeks ago, I received a call from Lauren Santos of Family Services informing me that I was nominated for the Victim Service Award by my 2 law enforcement advocates, Emily and Gabby, along with Callie from Day One. Thank you for that. I was also informed that there were 6 other people receiving this award. Congratulations to all 6 people, well deserved. We do not do this alone. There are several other organizations in the state of Rhode Island that help provide services for these victims, investigate these crimes, and prosecute these crimes. Thank you for your service. I'd like to offer a special thanks to my Special Victims Unit in the Providence Police Department, to all the investigators, all the detectives, and all the advocates for their hard work and dedication day in and day out. It takes a special type of person to investigate these crimes, and they do it on a daily basis. Finally, I'd like to say that we'll continue to help the victims and survivors and families of domestic violence and sex crimes, and to get them the justice they deserve, to let them know that they do not stand alone, and also to increase the awareness of domestic violence. Thank you.
And congratulations, Detective Sergeant John Muriel. Next, we have Central Falls Police Chief Colonel Anthony Roberson. He began his law enforcement career in 2002 as a patrol officer with the Providence Police Department. After several different posts and promotion, he was sworn in as the first Black police chief in Central Falls, Rhode Island, becoming only 3rd Black municipal chief in the state's history in January of 2021. Over the years, he has received national recognition and numerous awards for his community policing initiatives during his more than 18 years with the Providence Police Department. He was the first in Rhode Island to be selected to receive the United States Department of Justice Attorney General's Award for Distinguished Service in Community Policing. He was also the recipient of the Jefferson Award for Public Service an inductee into the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hall of Fame for the City of Providence, and an awardee of the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association for Community Policing, an honoree of the NAACP Medgar Evers Award, and a recipient of the President George Bush Sr. Point of Light Award, in addition to receiving other recognitions. Colonel Roberson also serves on the board of directors for my organization, Sojourner House, whose mission is to promote healthy relationships by providing culturally sensitive support, advocacy, and housing and education for victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, and also to affect systems change. Let's hear from him now as he introduces our next victim service awardee, Laurie Williams.
My name is Anthony Roberson, Colonel of the Central Falls Police Department. I'd like to recognize National Crime Victim Rights Week. The Central Falls Police Department share in a great relationship with Family Services Rhode Island. Both agencies seek to address the trauma experienced by victims, ranging from sexual assaults to domestic violence. This is a relationship that we seek to not only continue, but strengthen throughout the years. On behalf of the Central Falls Police Department, we'd like to extend a hearty congratulations to this year's recipient, Laurie Williams, on behalf of being recognized for such a great honor. Thank you for your work, your advocacy, and your continued assistance from victims from all over the state. Again, congratulations.
Congratulations, Laurie. So Laurie Williams is a former law enforcement advocate that went to work at THEA at Sojourner House Shelter for those who have experienced trafficking. Laurie is also a SOAR member and is working with DCYF to change systems. In her new role, she works to identify new moms at the hospital that may need intervention and support. She trains on DV at the Police Academy and has experience working with people who harm. I am fortunate to get to work with Laurie every day. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce our final award recipient, Callie Babbitt Spears. Callie is, hold on one second, it looks like
Good afternoon. My name is Laurie Williams, and I am honored to accept the 2022 Crime Victim Service Award. My journey as an advocate began after surviving an 18-year abusive relationship. I was driven by a passion to support others who were being victimized as well. I returned to school and changed my major so I could move forward with my vision for the future. Soon after beginning that journey, I became a SOAR member and was further inspired by a group of absolutely amazing, passionate, and focused women. Once I completed my education, I was offered a position as an advocate for people victimized by domestic violence and sexual assault. Today, I continue as an advocate at Sojourner House. I have also worked alongside so many passionate advocates who, like myself, continue to raise our voices on behalf of the people we serve. Over the years, I have supported thousands of people during the most difficult times of their lives. What I have recognized is that my response, our responses, directly affects the next step that they may take. I have hope for the future as we work to close gaps and improve responses for all survivors. As we are called to empower all those who have been victimized, my hope is that every individual, agency, and system that they may encounter along their journey provides services that strengthen them with each step they take. My hope is that all people being victimized know their rights. My hope is that we collectively listen to their specific needs and the barriers they face, and diligently eliminate gaps we discover so we strive for equity in services and accessibility for all. My hope is that we help them break down barriers, not add more. I truly believe, as do the many people I stand with, that all people have the right to live free and safe from violence, and I will continue to advocate for all to do so. I want to thank you again. This has been a true honor.
All right, congratulations, Laurie. Next, it is my pleasure to introduce our final award recipient, Callie Babbitt Spears. Callie is a member of Sisters Overcoming Abusive Relationships, or also called SOAR, a grassroots task force of the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence made up of domestic violence survivors who are dedicated to using their voices and experiences to end domestic violence. She started working with the Rhode Island Department of Children, Youth, and Families and formed a parents group, or actually was asked to be involved with a parents group focused on systems change for families affected by domestic violence. Callie is a fierce advocate for victims and survivors and their children. She also recently participated in the play Behind Closed Doors, an original play written and performed by 15 survivors of domestic violence from SOAR. The performance is a true account of their experiences with domestic violence, hope, and survival, seeking to draw you into their lives to dispel the stigmas of this often misunderstood abuse. We are so very pleased to offer Callie a 2022 Crime Victim Service Award. She'd like to share a few words with us, and here she goes.
Hi, thank you so much for this acknowledgement. My name is Callie Babbitt Spears. I am a SOAR member, Task Force of Survivors of Domestic Abuse through the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So my journey started when I was very young. Seeing what domestic violence was as a child, I still didn't understand what it meant. I knew how it felt as a child. So being involved with domestic abuse as an adult, and the one person that believed me certainly motivated me and encouraged me to, leave the abuse. I want to be that same person. I want to be that advocate that I had. That one person made a huge difference for me and my children's lives. Being part of SOAR, I was able to learn a lot of the dynamics that domestic abuse entailed. I also became involved with DCYF on the parent board, the Parent Advisory Board, through DCYF, and realizing that SOAR and the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence has tried to collaborate with DCYF for over 30 years. Once I became involved, I knew that it was definitely important to collaborate the two groups because our efforts to keep the children safe and keep people informed, and the trainings, there's a trauma-informed approach training and the wraparound services that we're trying to get in schools also. So yes, there are many accomplishments, but there's still so much work that needs to be done, and holding not just the abusers accountable, but also holding the systems in place, guardian ad litems, judges, therapists, psychologists that don't understand domestic abuse. How are you able to assist these families and assist the children? So we definitely need more. We need more housing. I'm on the Affordable Housing Collaborative in my town, but not only do we need it to be affordable, we also need the housing to be safe. So thank you again for the acknowledgement of my accomplishments, but there's still so much work that needs to be done. I still have so many assignments to look forward to. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again to Laurie and Callie and both SOAR members for sharing your story and joining us. And that brings us to the end of our awards. Again, thank you to the presenters, and many sincere thanks and gratitude to our awardees for being who you are and doing what you do. We are so grateful for you to be a part of today's ceremony. Next, Kansas is going to tell us about the Rhode Island Victims resource guide and bring our ceremony to a close today.
Yes, the Rhode Island Crime Victim Service Provider Steering Committee, and that's a mouthful, but the committee recently updated the Rhode Island Crime Victim Resource Guide. It's a guide we put together a year or two ago, right when we were deep into COVID, to try and get the word out about available resources across the state for victims and survivors, and also as maybe a tool that providers, people who provide services to victims of crime, could use. We've updated that guide, and it now includes current comprehensive information about victim-focused organizations, services, and resources available across the state. There are also significant additional resources within the guide related to substance misuse, related to basic needs assistance, housing, etc. So the guide has not been printed yet. We're in the process of working through that, but you'll be able to find it at least initially in the next few weeks on the Family Service of Rhode Island website. That website address is www.familyserviceri.org. It's also going to be on our Facebook page. We are also going to have the guide translated into Spanish and Portuguese. So we will have hard copies printed in all 3 languages. We're going to distribute the guide across all the victim service providers that we can think of. Again, so within the next month or so, be out on the lookout for that. We're also going to share the electronic version resource with our community partners as well. So we're really excited, and we hope that you guys will help get the word out about the guide, and that we hope that victims and those serving them will find it useful and share it with others. So in closing, first, I want to thank everyone for bearing with us. I know we had some technical issues and moments there, but thanks for bearing with us during those little blips. In the end, nearly everyone knows someone who has been victimized, or they themselves have been touched by crime. Crime victims and survivors and their families often suffer a broad range of psychological and social injuries that persist long after their physical wounds have healed. This year's National Crime Victim Rights Week theme, Rights, Access, Equity for All Victims, is reflective of a vision for the future where victims, survivors, and their families are strengthened by the responses they receive in seeking justice. Organizations remain steadfast in ensuring victim rights are respected, and as a community, we collectively inspire hope and healing. Every year during this week, we are reminded that there is still so much to do, and Callie too, I think, shared there's just so much for us to do. Nancy as well encouraged us just to not stop fighting for victims and survivors. This week also offers us an opportunity to renew our collective commitment to reaching and supporting every victim of crime in Rhode Island. I hope today you will all join me in doing so. Thank you so much for being here today and staying with us for a few minutes. And we look forward to seeing everyone again next year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.